The scary stories have existed for, I'm pretty sure, as long as humans have. People have always enjoyed the rush of adrenaline they get when they hear about monsters and demons, bumps in the night, and the evil of those who live amongst us. These days though, it kind of seems like people are so caught up in creepypastas and SCPs, we've forgotten where some of the best scary stories come from. Real life. And while scary things are happening around us every day, with social media we have so much evidence at our fingertips that it becomes so much more real and tangible that it's more than just a story, it's life and it's tragic. But what about the stories that happened before social media was a thing? The ones that we're able to distance ourselves from, but that actually happen and are so mysterious and spooky we can't help but get caught up in them. What is up, you guys? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video. Now before I get into it, not a single one of you will comment on my hair in the comments. This is its natural state. It is so humid, you guys. The humidity is getting in through my windows. I can't do anything about it. I really can't. Either way, some of the most interesting cases come from times before you and I were around, the 50s. So let's just dive in. These are the top 10 true scary stories from the 50s. Starting off at number 10 is the DYATLOV Pass incident. On February 1st and 2nd, 1959, 9 Russian hikers mysteriously died on the Ural Mountains. It wasn't your normal exposure to the elements or attack by a wild animal either, and nobody knows how it happened. When their campsite was found, the tents had all been shredded from the inside out. But the weirdest part was how the bodies were found. For one, it appeared that they left the campsite of their own accord, but many of them were naked except for their underwear. Why would they just leave like that? Plus, one of the hikers was found dead with crazy amounts of radiation coming off of him. Others showed intense physical trauma, including a fractured skull and major chest fractures. Even more gruesome, one victim was missing both its eyes and another was missing their tongue. Other hikers reported years later that on the night of the incident they saw strange orange orbs in the sky. Autopsies showed that their injuries weren't caused by animals or people, so what could have caused it? Natural elements aren't going to rip your tongue out or cause your body to be radioactive, and to this day nobody knows the true story of what happened to them. But I did a video on all the theories that could have happened to them, so check it out if you haven't already. Coming in at number 9 is the Los Feliz murder mansion. Early December 1959, a horrific murder-suicide took place. One night, Dr. Harold Perelson murdered his wife with a double-ended hammer and tried to murder his 3 children as well. When he started hitting his eldest daughter, she woke up and started screaming, alerting the 2 younger ones, who were able to escape along with the eldest daughter. Harold then decided to kill himself by drinking acid. Apparently, everyone who has spent any amount of time near the house has reported feeling an incredible sense of dread and a need to run away from it. I mean, energies, they're a thing. That home definitely holds a lot of darkness, and I 100% would not be surprised if it was haunted. At number 8, we have Jose Delgado's mind control. In the 1950s, Delgado decided to experiment with electricity and use it to control the brain activity of animals, and it actually worked. He was able to control not only the emotions but also the actions of animals by stimulating their brains with the electricity. The real horror comes from when he expanded his test from animals to mental patients. While he claims that these patients were volunteers, there are a lot of allegations that he implanted them with a brain control mechanism against their will. And in a truly Orwellian hypothesis, in the 1970s, Delgado was quoted as saying someday armies and generals will be controlled by electric stimulation of the brain, which is absolutely horrifying. Going at number 7 slot is Zombie Road. Located in Wildwood, Missouri, this road is a site of multiple scary stories. For one, it's said to be incredibly haunted both by the spirits of the indigenous community who once lived on the land and by the spirits of victims who were killed by the trains that used to use the tracks there. Then in the 1950s, a lot of teenagers started using the road as a hangout spot, and if you know anything about serial killers, you know that they love targeting dark locations where teenagers are. One murderer who goes by the name of Zombie, hence the name of the road, escaped a mental asylum and allegedly started using this road as his home base, no doubt satisfying his murderous urges at the same time. The road is now a nature trail, but it's closed every night for safety reasons, and there are hefty fines for trespassers, so don't even think about it. Now at number 6 is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. While it was initially opened in 1864, it wasn't until the 1950s that it reached its absolute capacity of 2,400 patients. Oh, and it was originally only designed to hold 250 people. This massive overcrowding led to a lot of inhumane conditions, including lack of heat, people being held in cages, and lobotomies being performed apparently to try and fix the overcrowding problem. Naturally, patients started becoming violent, attacking staff and setting fires. And to this day, the building is listed as one of the most haunted in America. Coming in at number 5 is Poinsett Bridge. Located in South Carolina, the bridge was constructed back in 1820. It's apparently now home to the ghost of a man who was killed when he got into a car crash there in the 50s. Since then, people who dare to walk through the bridge at night have reported seeing floating orbs, random lights, and hearing disembodied ghostly voices. People think that the lights that they can see could be the headlights of the ghost's car, reliving the moment it crashed for the rest of eternity. At number 4 are the Pollock twins. In 1957, 11-year-old Joanna and 6-year-old Jacqueline Pollock both passed away in a car accident. 1 year later, their mother gave birth to 2 more twins, named Jillian and Jennifer. As soon as these twins were old enough to talk, they immediately began asking for toys that belonged to their deceased sisters that they had never seen before. They even recognized landmarks that only Joanna and Jacqueline would have known, and stranger still, they would get panicked at the sight of cars, saying things like, "That car is coming to get us." I don't know about you, but to me it sounds like they remembered both their past lives and their deaths. Is this reincarnation we have? I'm not really sure. Filling at number 3 slot is the Poltergeist backstory. In Feb and March of 1958, the Herman family started experiencing all sorts of paranormal poltergeist activity. They had lids and bottle caps popping off in their kitchen, bookshelves falling over, and a statue of the Virgin Mary being thrown across the room and smashing a mirror that was 12 feet away. I don't know, something about a poltergeist trying to destroy religious symbols doesn't exactly seem friendly to me, you know what I mean? And the Hermans seemed to agree, and I mean, no shit. Even when they got a cop to come and check it out, he was almost struck by a glow being thrown across the room at him. Eventually, the family called in priests and ministers from other religions to conduct rituals and exorcisms on the house, but even that didn't work. Then suddenly, as quickly as everything started happening, it all stopped. The family moved out after the haunting ceased, but I don't know, I feel like I would have moved out as soon as the first light bulb exploded. Like, I don't have time for that. I don't want to risk my chances with that. I'm not doing it. Now, at number 2 is Overtoun Bridge. This one's more of a sad mystery than it is a horror story per se. Since the 1950s, the Overtoun Bridge has seen dogs jump from it at insane rates, approximately 1 per month, and nobody knows why they do it either. Dogs that survived the 50-foot drop who are taken back to the bridge often try to do it again, and it isn't even like it's random either. All the dogs jump from the same side of the bridge in clear weather, and all the dogs were breeds that had longer snouts. Maybe they're smelling something that makes them do it. And finally, at number 1 is Ed Gein, the infamous serial killer. Ed confessed to the murders of Mary Hogan in 1954 and Bernice Warden in 1957, but that's not even the messed up part. What makes this case so disturbing is everything that the police found when they were searching Ed Gein's house. They found Mary's face in a bag, her head in a box, Bernice's head in a burlap sack, leggings made from human skin, balls made from human skulls, a lampshade made from a human face, human skin covering all his chairs, and skulls on his bedposts, and so much more, but you guys seem to get the gist. The man liked skin-covered furniture. And that is it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I feel like my hair kind of got better throughout the video, but not really. Need to straighten this shit ASAP, Rocky. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. As always, I'm your host, Eamon Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
The 60s was a wild time in history. Throughout the world, there was massive change in people's political thinking. There were wars that were being waged, and some people were just partying it up. Some people were horribly racist, and other people had open arms and wanted to take everyone in. I don't know if it would be my first place to visit if I had a time machine, but there are some historical events that cannot be ignored. Hello, Most Amazing Top 10 family. I am your host, Jade Arena, and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Today, we're going to be counting down the top 10 true scary stories from the 60s. As always, I would love it if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also, stick around for the whole list because I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts, which you guys love so much. Remember, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram. And without taking any longer, let's get into this list. At number 10, we have the first successful heart transplant. Could you imagine going in for a heart transplant surgery and there literally has never been a successful one? The amount of stress you would be under just from that would probably make your heart fail, but hey, this guy was the lucky one. Well, kinda. In 1967, Christian Bernard pulled a man's heart from his chest and inserted a fairly fresh one. The dude lived. He woke up after the surgery and he was able to talk to his wife. Now, the guy did die 18 days later, but at least it worked for a little bit. I mean, if you're going to die anyways, but you have the opportunity to be a part of history, then why not? I'm not saying I would ever do something like that, but for all the people out there who want to be heroes, step right up. That's super cool. Now, the good thing is that this breakthrough pushed the science of heart transplant surgery into a new era. era. Thanks to the risk that both these men took, we are able to perform this surgery and have people live long, successful lives after. Coming at number 9, we have Marilyn Monroe's found dead. She was the biggest sex symbol of her era. Every dude wanted her, and she became so famous that she slept with the president. Well, allegedly slept with the president, but I think it's safe to say that we all know the two of them were knocking boots. And that's what made her death such a mystery. If we take everything at face value, it would seem that the young star died from a drug overdose. But if we put on our tinfoil hats and dig through a conspiracy bin just for a moment, it might seem that she was killed by the CIA. Ooh, holy cow. The suspicion is that she knew too much. With her getting so close to Kennedy, he might have slipped her a couple of White House secrets, and the American government couldn't have that just floating around, so they sent someone in to take her out. Coming in at number 8, we have the Summer of Love. Now, I personally don't find this scary at all. I think it was awesome. The Summer of Love was when over 100,000 hippies traveled to one neighborhood in San Francisco to live as free people. It might have been the biggest hippie movement in history. There was already a large population of young people living in San Francisco, so it just fit right in. There was live music, healthcare centers, open houses for people to couch surf on, and a whole lot of drug use and unprotected sex. The Summer of Love coincided with a generation of people that were anti-war, anti-establishment, and didn't want to be told what to do. It kind of makes you want to go to San Francisco. Coming at number 7, we have A Man on the Moon. Once again, isn't the scariest story of all time, but it must have been terrifying for Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. You're going to land on the moon and no one has ever done it before. Sure, a group of some of the smartest people in the world are telling you that it's going to be fine, but you're the one who has to do it. Of course, you get all the fame, but still, they must have been thinking about what will happen if we crash into the moon. What if we get to the moon, we land, and then we can't get back? What if we burn up on re-entry? But I bet the last thing they thought that was going to happen was that they were going to have to deal with a bunch of people who don't know anything about space travel telling them that they never did it. Could you imagine? You walk on the moon and then someone calls you a liar? Play that clip of Buzz Aldrin punching that moon landing denier in the face.
The kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Coming at number 6, we have civil rights leader Medgar Evers was assassinated. The sacrifices that people made before us so we could live in a more tolerant world will never be forgotten. Medgar Evers was a war veteran who aided troops in World War II. After enlisting in the army again after the Great War, he came back to America and decided he would dedicate his life to help impoverished black communities. He single-handedly shined a light on the terrible way black people were being treated in the South and would go door to door to encourage black people to vote. Unfortunately, his efforts drew attention of some evil people. Medgar Evers was shot and killed by a white supremacist by the name of Byron Della Beckwith. After 2 trials, Beckwith walked away a free man. It wasn't until the 1990s, when public pressure forced the case to be reopened, that he was finally sentenced to jail. Coming in at number 5, we have the Cuban Missile Crisis. This was one of the biggest scares in American history. Think about this. You have nuclear arms building up in different countries, with the Soviet Union and the Americans constantly bumping heads and constantly flexing. The Cold War is at an all-time high, and the anti-communist sentiment in America is raging, as well as the anti-capitalist sentiment in the Soviet Union. These two countries hate each other. Then it's discovered that the Soviet Union has been sneaking missiles into Cuba, which is in firing range of the US, and these missiles might have nuclear capabilities. Yeah, if I was living in America at this time, I probably would have been pooping my pants. There wasn't the same missile defense systems like we have today. If Cuba was fully loaded with nukes and the ability to launch them, there would be a good chance that they could get one through and you could say goodbye to a major American city. Of course, the crisis was averted and the Cold War continued in its cold state. Coming in at number 4, we have the Vietnam War. Throughout the 60s, a brutal war waged on Vietnamese soil, which was once again the product of the Cold War, having a split between communist and capitalist ideals. The southern part of Vietnam was supported by the Americans as well as several other countries. They had the advantage on technology, weaponry, and chemical warfare. The Americans dumped a chemical known as Agent Orange all over the Vietnamese jungles in an attempt to destroy the foliage to give the Western troops an advantage. But the understanding of the land and the vast network of tunnels that the Vietnamese built gave them the edge that could not be overcome, and they were able to hold their country. Coming at number 3, we have the Kennedy assassination. This was something that shocked the world. Not only was the president assassinated, but it took place on live TV. The whole nation was watching. A number of other countries were watching. When a bullet came through and took the president's life, after the dust settled, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested for the crime, but he was shot and killed before he could stand trial. On top of that, there was footage of the event released to the press which revealed there might have been a second shooter since there was another angle Kennedy gets shot from. The whole event is shrouded in mystery to this day, with everyone and their dog coming up with new theories as to who killed the president and why. This is something we will probably never get to the bottom of unless you join the CIA and they let you look in the super secret files that are kept in the super secret folder. Coming in at number 2, we have the first person in space. You could put this event either on a list of most amazing things to happen in the 60s or a list of the scariest things to happen in the 60s. Imagine being the first person to ever head into the vast unknown of space, where no one can help you, no one can come to pick you up, and most importantly, no one can hear you scream. Yuri Gagarin was a Soviet cosmonaut, and he was the brave man who would put his life on the line to see what it's like beyond the clouds. Upon his return, Yuri was now one of the most famous people in the world. This would be like if someone today went to the center of the earth or walked through a black hole and back. It was something that was just never thought to be possible. The Soviets awarded him with a title known as the Hero of the Soviet Union, which sounds so cool. You would feel like Superman or something after that happening. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have Martin Luther King's assassination. Martin Luther King was one of the most influential people in American history. He worked tirelessly to make sure Black Americans had the same rights as everyone else. His efforts changed America forever, but when you make that much of an impact, even if it is extremely positive, you can bring unwanted attention from evil people. And on March 29th, 1968, Martin Luther King was shot in his motel room in Tennessee. He was there with his regular crew of people to speak at a workers' conference. Recently, there had been an issue in Tennessee with black workers being unfairly paid less than white workers, and King came to change this. After he was shot, he was rushed to the hospital in an attempt to save his life, but unfortunately, he died not long after reaching the emergency. All right, everyone, that has been our list. Obviously, that was a very heavy at the end there, where we're gonna try and lighten the mood a little bit. Remember all the good things that happened right in this moment. Just remember good things. And now it's time to do some pet shoutouts. Remember, guys, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram. I pick new pets every day, so if you don't get picked one day, you can message back another day. I usually pick who message last, so if I don't pick you, you can message again and again and again if you want. I don't care how many times you message me. If it takes me a little while to get back to you, I'm very sorry. I have a lot of these to do. And without taking any longer, let's shout out some pets. To kick things off, we have a parrot who goes by the name of Ash, and he seems like he's enjoying something right there. I can't tell if that's a toy or a treat. Right after that, we have Tigger, who's living up to his name with those orange stripes. This dude is looking like he just came out of the 100-acre woods. Next up, we have Xander, who is sporting an amazing bandana. This dog has better fashion sense than I do. Then we have Eddie, who is looking great, sporting that never-ending tuxedo. And to close it out, we got 3 birds that I didn't get the name for, so as I always do, I will take it upon myself to name these birds. The first bird is named Frank Magoonie, then we have Lupper, and the green bird is the Green Ranger. That's how I'm gonna name them. All right, everyone, that is everything we have for you today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Until next time, I have been your host, Chade Arena, and keep checking in these history things. They're very interesting. Bye. All right, we're recording. This is crazy true stories from the 60s. Or scary true stories? Scary. It's always scary.
Ah, the 70s. You had bell-bottom jeans, tie-dye shirts, and of course, the rise of disco. But much like other eras, this one was also filled with scary accidents, serial killers, and kidnappings, which I will be discussing in today's video. But before I begin, if you had a time machine and could go back to any era, which one would it be? Let me know in the comments below. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 true scary stories from the 70s. Starting off this countdown, we have The Old Man. This story was posted on Reddit by the user GR8RN. She shared a creepy incident that happened to her in the 70s. At the time, she was going to nursing school. Every Friday, she would take a bus to the city for school. One day, while getting off the bus, she was approached by a friendly-looking old man. They began having a pleasant, innocent conversation. The man ended up sharing with her that his wife had passed away and his children lived far away from him. But then, it got quite creepy. The man kept complimenting her, saying she was super pretty and how he wished he was her dad. Then the old man asked her if she could pretend to be his daughter. He said every day he would wait at the bus stop for her and then they could hold hands. He grabbed her hand and put it in his pocket. Then her bus came and he tried to kiss her. She pulled away and hopped on that bus super fast. I mean, maybe he was just a very lonely old man. And from then on, she took a different route to get around the city. In our 9th spot, we have the lead poisoning. Back in the 70s, tons of children were suffering from lead poisoning. There was a huge issue with lead being used in paint. In fact, it was poisoning tens of thousands of children in their home. Children were poisoned by licking surfaces that were contaminated with lead paint dust, from licking their hands and fingers after touching lead paint, or by breathing in the lead dust particles. On top of that, America had a problem with children eating paint flakes. Apparently, the lead made the paint flakes taste sweet, so they were peeling paint off the wall and eating it. As a result, children were being born with birth defects, or children would develop behavioral problems or learning disabilities. Others would suffer from seizures. As a result, around 1978, the use of lead in paint was banned. In our 8th spot, we have the Westgate Bridge disaster. On October 15th, 1970, the Westgate Bridge in Australia collapsed, killing 35 workers. Most of the workers were on their lunch break, eating underneath the bridge when it collapsed. Other workers were on top of the bridge and some were inside of it. Now, it's said that the bridge collapsed due to structural failure, reckless attempts to fix construction errors, and improper building methods. To this day, it is known as one of the worst industrial disasters. Making our way down the list at number 7, we have the kidnapping. Back in the 1970s, the Broberg family, consisting of Robert and Marianne and their 3 daughters, Jan, Karen, and Susan, became close with their new neighbor, Robert Berchtold, and his wife and kids. They became so close to him that they referred to him as B, and he acted like the girls' second father. However, B became very obsessed with Jan, so much so that in 1974 he kidnapped her for 5 weeks. He groomed and brainwashed Jan and told her that they were being abducted by aliens that assigned them with a mission to give birth to a child before her 16th birthday. If they didn't, it would put her family at risk. He fell in love with Jan and kept saying he was going to marry her. In fact, her parents even let this grown man sleep in the same bed as their young daughter. Then in 1976, B abducted Jan for the 2nd time. He manipulated the family and Jan the entire time. The story was actually featured in the documentary Abducted in Plain Sight. So if you want more information on the case, then check that out. In our 6th spot, we have the CHOWCHILLA bus kidnapping. On July 16th, 1976 in Chowchilla, California, 3 gunmen kidnapped 26 children and a bus driver right off of their school bus and held them for ransom. The bus was headed to school when the driver pulled off to the side when seeing a van that appeared to be in need of help at the side of the road. However, when he did this, 3 men with guns entered the bus and forced everyone to the back of 2 vans. They were then driven 11 hours away before eventually being forced into a truck that was buried underground. The truck contained dirty mattresses, containers of water, and was very stuffy with little air. Thankfully, after 16 hours, the bus driver managed to escape and help all of the kids out of the ground. The men were found and convicted for their crimes. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the plane crash. On May 25th, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 lost its left engine during takeoff. All 271 passengers aboard the plane were killed, along with the 2 workers on the ground. When the plane took off at O'Hare International Airport, an improperly repaired engine gave away under pressure. While it fell off, it smashed the front edge of the wing. The plane was about 300 feet in the air when its nose tipped down and headed straight towards the ground. Upon contact, it burst into flames. All of this happened within 31 seconds. It is a truly tragic incident and remains the deadliest passenger airline accident on US soil. In our 4th spot, we have the Oakland County Killer. From 1976 to 1977, at least 4 children were abducted and killed by an unknown serial killer or group of killers. The victims were 12-year-old Mark Stebbins, 12-year-old Jill Robinson, 10-year-old Christine McLeck, and 11-year-old Timothy King. The children went missing, then were found days later dead. Some were strangled, some were smothered, while 1 was shot. What's scary is that this case still remains unsolved to this day. Police have had suspects over the years, but no one has officially been charged with this crime. In our 3rd spot, we have Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster. He was an American serial killer who murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys from 1978 to 1991. He would pack the victims' body parts into plastic bags and bury them behind his parents' home. He also would take disturbing photographs of his deceased victims and keep certain body parts as souvenirs. Upon searching his home, police found albums full of pictures of body parts, and his place was filled with human remains. Heads were in the fridge and freezer, 2 skulls were on display in his house, and a 57-gallon drum filled with decomposing bodies was found in his room. On top of that, there was evidence that Dahmer would eat some of his victims. Coming in at number 2, we have the hitchhiker. This story was posted on Reddit by the user That's a Padlin. He states that in the late 70s, his uncle was studying medicine at the University of Chicago. After one of his morning classes, he decided to hitchhike back home instead of paying for a taxi. That's when a man drove up to his uncle and offered him a ride. The man apparently was normal looking and was friendly. His uncle got in the car and the man began to drive him to his location. Except when they got close to his destination, he took a different turn. When the uncle asked about where he was going, the man put his hand on his knee and said, "No, son, you are coming with me." The uncle quickly unlocked the passenger door and ran out of the car while they were stopped because of some traffic. But that's not all. A couple years later, his uncle was watching TV when he saw the man that had picked him up. The man was the serial killer John Wayne Gacy. In fact, the news said that Gacy would remove the door handle off the passenger side door to prevent his victims from escaping. That is so creepy. I'm just glad that his uncle made it out safe. But this brings me to my next story. In our number 1 spot, we have John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was an American serial killer who murdered 33 boys and young men in the 1970s. He was also referred to as the Killer Clown because he would dress up as Pogo the Clown for neighborhood events or children's parties. Over several years, Gacy murdered 33 people. 29 of them were found underneath Gacy's house. 26 were in his crawl space, 3 were found buried in areas beneath his home. In 1978, Gacy was finally caught. After a 15-year-old boy went missing, police realized that Gacy was the last person to see him, since the boy went to his home to ask about a job with his construction company. When they searched his home, they found teenage boy clothes and eventually their bodies. And that's all for today's video. Let's move on to our comment shoutout portion. I'll be shouting out comments for my video, Top 10 Scary Urban Legends from Children's Books. Giovanni Borges commented, "I literally did a Lamb to the Slaughter project for 9th Lit. TBH, I was pretty into the story. BTW, Lindsay, if you see this, you're my favorite team member of Top 10. Thank you so much." But also, what is it? I feel like every person in English class had to do like a book report or some sort of project on Lamb to the Slaughter. Like I did it in, I think, grade 10. I don't know. Judy Flamate commented, "Judy Blume books, Hardy Boys, and Nancy Drew Mysteries, Legends, and Ghost Stories." So those are her favorite books from her childhood. Gotta say, you got a good choice in books. Zombie Man 0915 commented, "Goosebumps was one of my favorite series when I was a kid. Honestly, I wasn't allowed to read them because they were a little too scary for me, because I watched one episode of the show and it like totally creeped me out. So my mom was like, that's it, you're not allowed to watch the show or read the books, so I didn't." And that's all the comments I'm shouting out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see you.
The 80s were a wild time. You have some of the best movies of all time hitting the silver screen. You have drugs working their way through Miami into the rest of the United States, and neon was blasted on everything. Every time I think about the 80s, all I can hear is a synthesizer playing in the background and Tony Montana screaming, "Say hello to my little friend." But just like every other decade before and after, a lot of crazy stuff went down. I mean, how can you have a 10-year period without something crazy happening? Hello, Most Amazing Top 10 family. I'm your host, Che Dorena. Welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Today we will be going into a time machine and heading back to the era of scrunchies, punk, and the DeLorean so I can bring you the top 10 true scary stories from the 80s. If any of you at home want to take in some more Most Amazing Top 10 content, you should head over to our Instagram and Facebook pages. We have so much stuff going on over there for you guys, and you're going to want to stick around until the end of this list because I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts, which you guys love so much. Remember, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram, and without taking any longer, let's get into this list. Coming in at number 10, we have Dungeons & Dragons Was Evil. I don't know about you guys, but I think Dungeons & Dragons is so much fun. You get to jump into a fantasy world and do whatever you want, be whoever you want, and just feel like an overall badass. And the best part is, most of this stuff is free. It's a game that requires a lot of time, but not a lot of loot. But unfortunately, back in the 80s, many religious groups saw this game as something satanic. I mean, you're pretending to be a wizard and whatnot, which is supposed to be very unholy. The news picked up this controversy and then started running stories about the dangers of Dungeons and Dragons and how it could corrupt children. There were massive protests to get the game banned, which is really hard because you literally only need a pen and paper to play it. On top of this, some people were even saying that kids were committing suicide after playing this game. I think we can all agree now that this game is harmless and actually very good for your mind because it helps you focus and you're constantly doing math. But this is how far it went. There was a TV movie called Mazes and Monsters that starred Tom Hanks. It came out in 1982 and it was a bunch of teens who play D&D and then go crazy from it. Coming in at number 9, we have a burning plane. On February 27th, 1980, a standard flight would turn into many people's scariest moment. A flight was landing in Manila and things didn't go exactly as planned. It hit the runway a little too hard and bounced. This caused the plane to catch on fire with 124 passengers and 11 crew members stuck on board. People started to jump out of the plane onto the tarmac so they didn't die in the billowing flames. And in all this chaos, only one person died, mostly because of the bravest flight attendant who has ever walked the earth. Wang Huang stood at the door of the plane grabbing people who couldn't move and threw them off the plane to safety. The news article said that even while her clothes were on fire, she still continued to save lives. What is this lady doing as a flight attendant? She should be in the army or something. Huang had some minor injuries, but if it wasn't for her, many more people would have died on that flight. Coming in at number 8, we have Just Say No. America has always had a strange relationship with drugs. They keep trying to keep them out, but it also seems like the CIA started the crack epidemic. So who really knows what's going on behind the scenes? But one of the big pushes in the 80s was the Just Say No campaign, that kicking addiction was as easy as just saying no. It's just a little willpower, that's all you need. And I put this on a list of scary things because that's a terrible message to send out to people, and we're still seeing the ripple effects to this day. Telling people to just say no to get off drugs ignores all the links between drugs and mental health, the effect of your social economic situation, and the fact that drug companies are peddling the gateway drugs. Forget about calling alcohol and cannabis gateway drugs. What about Ritalin? That's speed. You're giving kids speed. Thankfully, we have a much more open mind when it comes to helping people with addiction problems. Coming in at number 7, we have the demonic Teddy Ruxpin. If you don't remember Teddy Ruxpin, then just think about Furbies. And if you don't remember what Furbies are, then just think about if you took Siri and stuffed it in a teddy bear, but it was even more useless. Teddy Ruxpin was a marvel of its time, a talking animatronic bear that you could bring home. All the kids wanted this toy so bad. They were going absolutely ballistic for it. But a little while after the launch, children were terrified of this little stuffed bear. Some parents thought that the devil had possessed the toy and was gonna bring harm to their family. Well, it turns out this was a minor scare, and it all came from the batteries running out in the Teddy Ruxpin. With less power, the voice would slow down to the point where it sounded like a demon. And with this being new tech on the market, and with people not knowing how to react, they did what people always do when they don't know how to react. They freaked out. Coming in at number 6, we have the Cabbage Patch Wars. Now, this isn't the war you'll read about in the history books because I kind of just made it up, but here's what's actually true. During the 80s, the American economy was at a huge upswing. Consumerism was at an all-time high, and one of the biggest things on the market was the newly coveted Cabbage Patch Kids doll. Everyone wanted one, so most stores were selling out faster than they could keep them in stock. This led to Black Friday style fights over dolls. There were several occasions where people would throw down right in the middle of a Kmart to try and beat the hell out of someone so they could walk away with the prize of a stuffed toy they saw on TV. What a crazy world. Thank God we don't live like that anymore. Just kidding, we still do that stuff all the time. Coming in at number 5, we have the Time Man of the Year 1982. Now think back to the 80s, specifically to the year 1982. Who do you think would have been the most influential person of that year? So important that they would have been put on the cover of Time magazine. Well, it was none other than the computer. It was a trick question. It wasn't a person at all. It was a thing that was revolutionizing the world and continues to shape our world to this day. Now, why would I put it on a list of scary things? Well, because it's kind of freaky. If we do head towards a future where robots take over the world and we all become human slaves, we will look back to the cover of that magazine as the birthplace of our demise. I mean, Hitler was also the man time of the year. I'm just saying. I mean, we're probably all gonna be fine, and I'm probably just being a drama queen, but maybe I'm right. Coming in at number 4, we have the Challenger disaster. Some of you may be aware of the tragic event that took place in 1986. There was a rocket that was set to go out to space and it had teachers on board, which was a big deal. So much of a big deal that school children all over America were watching it on live TV. Someone kids felt attached to was going to go into space, somewhere where few people had gone before. This idea was going to give a generation of kids the hope and interest to go into space and travel the vast unknown. And then just a little over a minute after takeoff, a faulty O-ring burst, which caused fuel to leak and ignite. The Challenger shuttle exploded in the air and chunks of debris rained down into the ocean, and the 7 crew members on board were killed. The generation of children that were destined to want to go to space were now traumatized. The whole event was remembered as one of the worst disasters in space travel history. Coming in at number 3, we have the mass exodus of Cuba. Dictatorships are a terrible thing, and in 1980 over 100,000 Cubans said that they had enough and it was time to move to somewhere else. So they jumped on boats and they headed towards Florida. This was a grueling trip, but it was worth it to save their families and their future generations from the conditions that they were forced to live in. Thank God this happened, because it saved thousands of lives and brought the Cuban sandwich to America. Have you ever had a Cuban sandwich? They are amazing. Coming in at number 2, we have Reagan gets hit. Becoming president seems cool in theory right before someone shoots you right in the chest. That's right, in 1981, the newly elected president Ronald Reagan was shot while walking out of a building in DC. If I was him, I would have fired my intelligence guys after this, because this guy was able to slip a bullet through and hit Reagan right in the chest. But apparently it takes more than bullets to slow this old man down, because he didn't stop ticking. This guy is like the Terminator or something. But the guy who shot him, John Hinckley Jr., was captured and was actually found not guilty due to reasons of insanity. Of course he wasn't allowed to walk free. He had to spend 30 years in a mental institution. The reason Hinckley said he shot the president was to impress Jodie Foster. I don't think it really worked. Coming in at the number 1 spot, we have AIDS is discovered. Nothing like a decade of free love to be followed by the most deadly sexually transmitted disease of all time. I mean, we're just trying to have a little fun over here. Throughout the early 80s, a new sickness was attacking the immune system of people. It was completely unknown what this sickness was. It wasn't until 1983 that the virus was labeled. Now, when we look back through history, it's thought that the first contraction of AIDS was probably in the 1930s, but it wasn't making headlines until the 1980s. And with this discovery came widespread fear, and with the fear, just like anything else, came misinformation. People thought the virus had something to do with the gay community, that it was a homosexual disease. It was thought that infected people would die in a few weeks, that people could catch AIDS through just touching someone. This led to widespread panic and horrible stigmas put on gay communities. Alright everyone, that has been our list, and as promised, I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts. Remember, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram. I pick new pets every day, so if you don't get picked one day, you can message back another day. If it takes me a little while to get back to you, I am very sorry. I have a lot of these to do, and without taking any longer, let's shout out some pets. Kicking things off, we have a sleeping Milo who might be the cutest puppy ever. Right after that, we have Luis the cat, who is all bundled up looking cozy. Next up, we have Barbara Gordon. This cat's owners are huge Batman fans. And then we have Hammy the hamster, who is living up to his name by being a hamster. And to close it out, we have the duo Lucky and Teddy. What an amazing pairing. Alright everyone, that is it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Until next time, I've been your host, Chaderena, and keep enjoying all the stuff from the 80s. Bye.
The 2000s were a great time. You had shows like Lizzie McGuire and the Even Stevens. We had that iconic denim look worn by Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. And we had a bunch of spooky stories perfect to share at sleepovers. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 scary stories from the 2000s. Starting off this countdown, we have The Janitor. This story was very popular in my area back in the 2000s. So there's a particular school here in Toronto that is said to be haunted. Apparently, back in the day, one of the school's janitors hung themselves in one of the stairwells. As a result, the stairwell was blocked off for quite some time, but over the years, they reopened it. A lot of people claim that this stairwell is haunted by the ghost of the janitor. Some of the caretakers claim to hear noises from the stairwell and have even seen apparitions of the man. If I could, I would so go ghost hunting in that school. Who's with me? In our ninth spot, we have The Bottle. This story was famous around 2009. Story goes that a bunch of kids were fooling around one day at a local junkyard. A lot of people in town would go there to see if anyone was discarding of something they could repurpose. Well, while playing, one boy found a little glass bottle filled with green bubbly liquid. He smelled it and he claims it smelled good, like minty, florally. Then he was double doggy dared to drink it. So obviously he had to follow through with it. You know how those work. When he drank it, his whole body was filled with a pleasant tingle. A month later, he started to cough up blood and eventually even his own intestines. Then his body started to develop new organs. 2 months later, he made the swamp his new home. And that, my friends, is how Shrek was born. No, I'm just kidding. Lastly, he started to target and eat humans. So, moral of the story, don't go around drinking random substances. I thought that was common sense. In our 8th spot, we have the choking Doberman. I'm sure you have all heard this story at some point in your life. Now, I'm not sure when it was created, but it was pretty popular in the 2000s. Story goes that one day a woman came home to her Doberman lying on the ground not breathing. She took him to the vet to get checked out, and then she went to return home. However, on the way home, she got a call from the vet. She said that she shouldn't return home since her dog choked on a person's finger. He thought the finger was from an invader. When the police searched her house, she found a burglar hiding in her closet with a missing finger. Dun dun dun. Moving on to number 7, we have the resurrection. This was another scary story from the late 2000s. This story is about a very disturbed and obsessive man. He is so infatuated with this one woman that he only wants the best for her. So he decided to kill her. Story goes that the man pushed the woman off of a building. He gathered her mangled corpse and carried it back to a resting place that he had made for her. He thinks she still looks beautiful with her twisted body and snapped neck. He dresses her in his mother's old wedding gown and then attempts to resurrect her. Now I feel like that's something from Joe from the show You would do. Either him or Norman Bates. In our 6th spot, we have the Lost Creepypasta. So apparently there was a creepypasta that was published in the early 2000s, but now it can no longer be found. The story was called Camerahead and was posted on 4chan. It was about a man that discovers a torn backpack and book while walking. In the backpack is a tape, broken camera, and a letter that says, "I killed a camerahead." The story goes on with the character eventually being stalked by creatures known as cameraheads. Basically, they are humans or human-like entities with cameras implemented into the nerves of their eyes. Now, what's weird is how historical screenshots of 4chan show an active link to a page named Cameraheads. Basically, if you didn't know, there's this thing called Wayback Machine that takes screenshots of websites for their archives. It allows you to see what websites look like back in the day on certain dates. So this proves that this was a real story published, but now there are no longer any more traces of it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the private school. This was another story that haunted me and my friends back in the mid to late 2000s. This story takes place at an all-girls boarding school. Apparently one night, to entertain themselves, a bunch of girls went to one of the school's bathrooms. There had always been rumors that this bathroom was haunted by a spirit of a girl that committed suicide at the school. They had brought candles and were looking into the dark mirror trying to summon this girl's ghost. However, they were being careless because one of the candles tipped over and caught a roll of toilet paper on fire. From there, the fire began to spread. One of the girls got trapped in the bathroom and perished in the fire. The other girls managed to escape, but a whole wing of the school was burnt down and lots of students died in their sleep. In our 4th spot, we have the Craigslist Ripper. The Craigslist Ripper, also known as the Long Island Killer, was, just as its name suggests, a killer from Long Island that would meet women from Craigslist and kill them. From 1996 to 2013, the killer is believed to have murdered at least 17 women. In the 2000s, this story was used as a warning tale to teach young girls about predators and the dangers of meeting up with strangers online. What's scary is that the killer still hasn't been found. Coming in our 3rd spot, we have the Alice killings. This story, or urban legend, was fairly popular in Japan around the late 90s to early 2000s. Story goes that someone was murdering random individuals and placing a single playing card by their bodies. The playing card had the word Alice written on it in the victim's blood. Now, this was just a made-up story, but in 2003 there was a serial killer in Spain that was caught leaving playing cards alongside his victims. Thankfully, he was caught and he's spending 142 years in jail. Moving on to number 2, we have the camp drowning. This was another story that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. I feel like this story was told by camp counselors around the world to scare kids at camp. Let me know in the comments below if you've heard of this story or some similar version of it. So story goes that there is a young girl that haunts summer camps. One day the girl was out canoeing. Now, this girl, she couldn't swim, but decided to go canoeing anyways. However, her and her friend didn't wear their life jackets like they were told to. While out on the lake, her canoe tipped over and she drowned. Now it's said that she haunts camps. If you are swimming, she will grab your leg and drag you down underwater. And in our number 1 spot, we have Zozo. Since 2009, the presence of Zozo has been pretty popular online. It all started back on October 24th, 2009, when a man named Darren Evans shared his interactions with Zozo online. Now, who or what is Zozo? Well, it is said to be a sinister demon that you can get in contact with through Ouija boards. Other times, Zozo may pretend to be a friendly spirit or maybe a deceased family member of the players to try and trick them. He then will wait until the players are vulnerable and then will harm them. At first, according to Darren's account, the interactions with Zozo were seemingly harmless. He experienced noises, moving objects, and flickering lights. Then he started getting scratches and bruises on his skin. During one session with Zozo, Zozo even harmed Darren's daughter. Zozo has even been linked to murders and suicides all throughout the world. And that's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below what legend from the 2000s scared you the most. Now let's move on to our comment shout-out portion. I'll be shouting out comments for my video, Top 10 Scary Titanic Urban Legends That Might Be True Part 2. Becky Goodwin commented, recently one of the musician's violins were found and identified. Very interesting to know it has survived for so long. That is really interesting. Wow, the fact that it survived underwater for that long, that's crazy, but also kind of cool. The Life of Gus Gus commented, OMG, why is the ad a cover for My Heart Will Go On song? LOL. Talk about good timing or something. Or YouTube just knows. Lily Vlogs commented, I remember watching the film and I cried. It's true, honestly, it's a really sad movie, but then there's behind the scenes photos of Leonardo DiCaprio in like a kiddie pool while shooting the like sad scene where he's in the water, and it's actually kind of funny. So if you see those photos, it kind of makes the movie that less sad. So it's kind of funny, but also ruins the movie. And that's all the comments I'm shouting out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see you. If I could, I would so go ghost hunting. If I could, I would so go